In this episode, I will take an excellent tutorial of a vector tennis ball provided to me by Christian of chrisdesign.wordpress.com and recreate that in Inkscape version 0.46. For those of you not in the know, Christian is an excellent Inkscape artist whose work I really enjoy. You can get to his website and tutorials by first navigating to the Screencasters website, scrolling downward until you find the Other Links section, and then finding Chris Design blog. Clicking that will take you to Chris's website, and there you can find other Inkscape tutorials. So thank you, Christian, for giving me a topic for a screencast. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to change my document properties. And I'm going to make this 300 wide by 200 high. This will be kind of small, but we're working with vectors here, so scale doesn't really matter. Okay, and I'm going to draw a circle, a perfect circle. I do that by holding the control key down and dragging. And then I'm going to change this circle to 120 pixels. I do that by clicking my aspect ratio lock, clicking my units, and then changing that to 120. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and center that up on my page, and we'll just roll this up for now. Again, I'm not using the key status monitor. It's still not working with Ubuntu Intrepid. So hopefully soon I'll get that back. So until then, I'll just describe what I'm clicking at the keyboard. Okay, I have a circle. So the next thing that I'm going to do is drag down a guide. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and left click from my ruler and just pull down a guide. And I'm going to double click on this guide and make this guide 100 high. Hit OK there, and that'll put it directly on my page, directly in the center of my page, and directly in the center of my circle. The next thing that I'm going to do is grab my circle tool and draw an ellipse. I'm going to give this a black stroke, and I'm going to remove the fill. And I'm going to make sure that I have 4 for the stroke width. And I'm going to make this 145 wide by 85 high. Okay. And you want to make sure that when you're changing the size of certain objects and you don't want your stroke to change, that you need to click on your option here and uncheck scale stroke width. Okay, that way you can change this any size you want and the stroke will stay the same size. Okay, so I'll just undo that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and center that vertically on my page so it's centered. And I'm going to want this about 1/3 of the way up. So I think what I'm going to do is just draw a construction box, and I'll make it about 50 pixels high. And I'll put that in the center. And I'll just kind of push that down. Okay. That's about where I want that. Okay. Now I need another one directly right below it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by changing my center point location. I'm going to hold my control key down, left click, and grab this center point, and I'm going to snap it down on my guide. Okay. Now one handy tip about these center points is sometimes you want to get them back to the original spot. You do that by holding the shift key down and then left clicking that those crosshairs, and it'll snap back to the original point. Okay, so you can just keep that in mind. Okay, now that I've moved my center point, I'm going to right click on this and duplicate. So now that I have an extra copy here, and I'm going to click this twice, and I'm going to grab my rotation handles. I'm going to hold my control key down, and I'm just going to drag this down 180 degrees. Okay, now I've got two of them directly centered on the ball here. Okay, so let me zoom out just a little bit. Okay, now what I'm going to do is select this item, select this item. I'm going to go to path and go stroke to path. Okay, I'm going to select this circle, this first object here, and I'm going to do a difference. I'll do that again for the second one. We'll go to path, difference, and I'll cut that away. Okay, I no longer need this guide, so I'm going to hold my control key down and left click it to delete it. Okay, and then let's zoom back up on this thing. Alright, now if I double click this, you'll notice that I have this object is now a path, and I have a certain amount of nodes around here. What I want to do is add more nodes. So what I'm going to do is, leaving that highlighted, I'm going to go to my effects pull down, modify path, and the add nodes option. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I have 3.0 in here. What that's going to do is add a node every 3 pixels on this whole entire object. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. I'm going to hit close. Now when I double click it, you'll see that I've got all these nodes here. Okay, that's exactly what I want. Okay, now having that many nodes, next thing I'm going to do is select this again, go to the effects pull down, modify path, jitter nodes. Okay, for jitter nodes, what I'm going to do is make this 2.0. I'm going to make sure that the shift nodes option is unchecked, and the shift node handles and use normal distribution are both checked. I hit apply there, and what that's going to do is it's going to dirty up this image a little bit. It's going to make it rough everywhere. Okay, and that's the effect that I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back out on that. Okay, now the next thing that I need to do is we're going to give this a gradient. But before I do that, I'm going to bring in a palette that I've already made in advance. What I'll do is I'll link this palette with this particular episode so you can download the SVG for it. Okay, that way we don't have to type in numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in my palette. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and pick my gradient tool. I'm going to do a radial gradient, and I'm going to double click this. Okay. Now, the default behavior is that a radial gradient is dark in the middle, in the center, and gets transparent as you move outward. Okay. If you want to reverse that, what you do is you hold your shift key down and press R on your keyboard, and it'll go the opposite direction. Now you have transparent on the inside and dark on the outside. Okay, so sometimes that helps if you just want to do a quick reverse. That way you don't have to go back into your edit menu. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add some more stops. Okay, I'll add one right here, and maybe one right there. Okay. And it really doesn't matter where you put them. You can slide these out a little bit more if you want. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to select my color picker. I'm going to select this inside, and I'm going to make it this color here. I'll select the color picker again, select this node here, touch my second color, select this node or stop, select my third color, select this node, my fourth color, and finally select the last node and pick my dark color. Okay, and that gives me a nice gradient here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is get this off center just a little bit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. This is all kind of according to taste, really. Okay, and I just want to give it just kind of a dark area right here. Make sure that that lighting's just coming from this bit. Okay. All right, next. Next we're going to make a spiral. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this palette. I don't need it anymore. And again, I'll link to this palette so you guys can download that for yourself. That way we don't have to go and type in all these colors. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. And we are going to use our spiral tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have these values set for 18.75. I'm going to have this one set for 0.850 and this one set for 0. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and drag that out. Doesn't matter how big I make it. And I'm going to change the stroke size from 1 to 0.1. Okay, so I have a very fine stroke. Okay, and I'm going to make this the same size as my circle, 120 pixels, excuse me, and 120 pixels here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this and just slide that to the side for now. And I'm going to come on this side and I'm going to draw a circle. And I'm going to make this one 120 pixels. Actually, I'm going to make this, let's make this a little smaller. Let's go 118 and a half. And I'll show you where I'm going with this, okay? Let's give this a kind of a medium gray. Let's go to our gradient tool. We'll make sure that we have the radial ellipse, radial gradient selected, and we'll double click this. And again, I'm going to use a Shift R to reverse it. And I'm going to put a new stop right in the middle. Okay, and I'm going to select the inside stop and we'll change that to white. The second stop, we'll change this white. Okay, and by the way, again, I'm using the Ubuntu color palette down here. Okay, it's almost just like the Tango color palette, but there's a few more colors on there. Okay. I think that looks pretty good, and basically what I'm going to do is push this all the way to the back. Actually, I'm just going to select this and center that up on my page. Okay. Okay, and what that's going to do is simulate some darkening of these seams that are on this tennis ball. Okay. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to take this object here and I'm going to center that up on my page, which happens to be directly on top of the ball. Okay, and we'll leave that there for now. Next thing I'm going to draw is we'll just draw a small rectangle. We'll push this all the way to the back. So a little bit bigger. Really doesn't matter how big you make this rectangle, okay? So I'm going to take this and let's give this some radius corners. And I'm going to center that up on my page. And we'll get that out of the way for now. And I'm going to give this a gradient, okay? I do that by selecting my gradient tool, selecting my linear gradient, double clicking. We'll move this to the top. I'll hold my control key down and get that to the bottom. Okay, and we'll give that a shade. And I'm going to go to my edit. And we'll darken up the bottom. About like that. And I'm going to go ahead and reverse this. So we have light on top, dark on the bottom. Okay. We'll go just a little darker. And here we'll go just a little lighter. Okay. That'll give us a nice gradient. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I need to pick on this spiral, and I'm going to convert that to a path. So I go to Path, Object to Path. We'll go to Effects. I'll go to Add Nodes. And I'm going to do we'll leave this about a 3.0. Let's just try that and see what it looks like for now. If we don't like it, we can always undo it. So I'll hit Apply. What that's going to do, if I double click this now we have lots of nodes on this. Okay, so we're going to go to our Effects pull down, Modify Path, and we're going to do Jitter Nodes again. This time I'm going to put 20.0. I'll make sure that I have the shift nodes unchecked and our bottom two options checked, and I'll hit Apply. Okay, and what that's going to do is that's going to jitter the spiral that we have. And what I'm attempting to do is make fibers here. Okay, so I'm going to select the spiral, or the jittered spiral that we've just made, and I'm going to make that stroke color yellow instead of black. Okay, so I'm going to pick this Ubuntu yellow and just drag and drop that right on top of this black stroke. Okay, and that'll take a minute. Adding a lot of nodes like that will slow down Inkscape a little bit. What you can do to speed things up, if things do get a little slow, is I think you can hold your I think it's your shift key and your number pad 5. Maybe it's the control 5. Yeah, it's the control key, number pad 5, and you'll go into outline mode. In outline mode, things will move very, very fast because you don't have anything rendered. Okay, so if you do need to kind of move around quickly, you can toggle that on and off. Okay, so we'll do control number pad 5 to get that to re-render. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an ellipse. Make sure the stroke is turned off. I'll make this all black, and I'll give this about a 75% opacity. And we'll make this a little bigger. Give this a drop shadow. Okay, and I'm going to take that and center that on the page. And holding my control key down, I'm going to move that upward. And we'll go to our fill and stroke dialog. And I'm going to give this about a 16%, whoops, not 126, 16% for the blur. And I'm going to move that down a couple steps. Okay, that'll give us a little bit of a drop shadow there. Alright, I think we're getting close. The next thing that I want to do is I want to add some text here. So let's type something out. And again, Christian gave me this idea here, so we'll do Inkscape Sports. And we'll move this up a little bit. And we'll go to our text tool. And I'm going to slide this all the way down, and we're going to use a font that Christian provided for me called Viper Nora. Okay, I'll provide this font as a download for this episode, so you guys can grab it. And I'm going to change the spacing to about 120, and I'm going to center this. Okay, we hit apply. Actually, I need to make this, let's make this 14 pixels high. Okay, I think that'll work. Now I'll go ahead and move this out so we can see it. And what I'm going to do is double click in here, and I'm going to select just the bottom line, and I'm going to change that to 10 pixels. Matter of fact, let's try 11. Make that a little bit bigger. Okay, and what I'm going to do is bring in the Inkscape logo. Okay, now you can find the Inkscape logo in your install directory. I've prepared this one already. And what I'm going to do is select my text and change the color so it's just a little bit lighter. Okay, and I'm going to take both of these. We'll do last selected. I'll center that up. And I'm going to pull this up and try to center it. Okay. I think that looks pretty good, and I'm going to take that and group that together. Now I'm going to take this, change this to page, center that on my page, which centers it on the ball. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do is take this spiral, bring it out front, and I need to change the transparency. We'll go with a 40 here. So it's not so bright. Okay, and I think we're getting close. So what I'm going to do is drag in a nice little link. I'll go ahead and center that up. I'll make that white. That way you guys will know where this tutorial came from. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. Let's try this one here. Okay, and that is our tennis ball. Okay, now what we tried to simulate on the tennis ball was we tried to make it a little bit rough around the edges. We did that by using jitter nodes. And we needed to simulate the fibers of the tennis ball, and we did that by making a spiral and adding more nodes to it and jittering the nodes. That means, in other words, kind of just randomizing the nodes around there. Okay? So hopefully, I think that looks like a tennis ball. I was kind of impressed with it when Chris sent it to me. I would imagine that Chris is going to do more sport-like tutorials. So please check on his website often for the next week or two. Hopefully he'll have some more tutorials. This is our tennis ball, and again I thank Christian from chrisdesign.wordpress.com for giving me a great idea to make a screencast. I really appreciate it, and I hope that Richard and I can work with Christian sometime in the future. So thank you very much for watching. I'm HeathenX.